Silence is one of the most misunderstood powers we hold. Most people think silence is weakness, a surrender, or a loss. But silence, when mastered, becomes the most commanding force in a world desperate for reactions. When you choose silence consciously, you are not shrinking. You are expanding beyond the emotional reach of those who seek to manipulate you. In a world where everybody is quick to speak, to shout, to defend, and to prove, the one who remains silent carries a different kind of authority. It's not the authority given by titles or external validation. It's the authority that emerges from inner mastery. Silence reveals that you are no longer playing the same game. When you go silent, especially after someone tries to provoke you, you are doing something few have the discipline to do. You are denying them access to your energy. You are removing the fuel they need to keep the drama alive. They expect your anger, your pain, your desperate explanations. They are counting on it. When you refuse to give it, you force them to confront the emptiness of their own games. Silence puts a mirror in front of them, and what they see often terrifies them. Without your reactions to manipulate, to guilt, trip, or to feed their ego, they are left alone with the truth of themselves. And many cannot handle that level of exposure. You see, noise is easy. Words are easy. Emotions flaring up are easy. Silence, real silence, the kind that is not born from fear but from self-possession, is rare. It demands inner strength. It demands that you are no longer driven by the need to be understood by those who refuse to understand you. It demands that you are no longer controlled by the childish desire to have the last word. It demands that you trust in your worth so deeply that you no longer need to argue for it. In dark psychology, manipulators thrive on emotional chaos. They create confusion, doubt, guilt, and fear, and then they position themselves as the solution to the very chaos they cause. But silence breaks that entire cycle. It cuts the strings of emotional puppetry. It halts the patterns of control, because when you say nothing, you are saying everything. You are saying, I do not need to explain myself. I do not need to beg for understanding. I do not need to participate in a circus to prove that I know who I am. There's a strange discomfort in the minds of those who lose their control over you. They may accuse you of being cold, heartless, or manipulative when you choose silence. They may push harder, trying to get a reaction, any reaction, even a negative one. Because to them, your silence is more threatening than your anger. Your silence tells them that they no longer have access to your emotional world. It tells them that the gates have been closed and they are standing outside, shouting into an empty field. It tells them that they no longer matter in the way they once did. Silence isn't passive. It's not sitting back and hoping life will fix itself. No, silence is active. It's a decision to step out of the ring and stop fighting battles that are beneath your dignity. It's the moment you stop watering dead plants. It's the shift from reacting to creating. It's the invisible yet undeniable energy that says, I value my peace over this chaos. I value my soul over these games. I value my future more than I value winning this useless argument. Learning to master silence is not about pretending you don't feel anything. It's about feeling everything and still choosing peace. It's about recognizing that not every offense needs a defense. Not every attack needs a counterattack. Not every betrayal needs an announcement. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do when someone underestimates your worth, when someone plays with your emotions, when someone tries to drag you into their storm, is to say absolutely nothing. And in that nothingness you say everything. True silence comes from an inner conviction that your spirit is not for sale. It shows that your energy is not cheap. It reflects that you have elevated your standards. You have realized that if you have to constantly explain your worth to someone, you have already given them too much access. Real silence speaks with a thunder that words could never carry. It communicates self-respect. It radiates unshakable certainty. It leaves those who try to disturb your peace wondering why their usual tricks no longer work, and they feel that loss deeply. In the end, silence is the tool of those who have learned that mastery over self is more valuable than victory over others. It is the discipline to choose not to engage in lower energies. It is the awareness that not every battle is yours to fight. And most importantly, it is the proof that you have stepped into a higher version of yourself, one that no longer seeks validation in the noise of the world, but finds true strength in the calm of your own soul. An expanded version of Key Point 2, Understanding Dark Psychology, written in the same powerful Bob Proctor-like style, around 700 words, without headings and without an ending sentence. Dark psychology is not about shadows and mysteries outside of you. It's about the manipulations that unfold in plain sight, often unnoticed, often accepted, until they begin to define the way you think, feel, and react. It's the silent force that others use when they play games with your emotions, when they twist your kindness into a weapon against you, when they pull you into cycles of hope and disappointment so subtly that you start to believe that it's normal. Understanding dark psychology is not about becoming paranoid. It's about waking up. It's about seeing the hidden mechanisms that some individuals use to control others without ever raising their voice. Silence, when used in the right way, breaks these hidden chains. It exposes the tactics that manipulators rely on, not through confrontation, but through withdrawal of energy. When you become aware of dark psychology, you stop blaming yourself for the confusion you feel. You start to recognize that not every chaotic relationship is your fault, and not every failure to communicate is a reflection of your inadequacy. You begin to see how certain people manufacture confusion to make you doubt your own instincts, how they create problems just so they can present themselves as the only solution. Dark psychology thrives in noise. It thrives in confusion. It needs constant engagement to survive. As long as you are arguing, explaining, defending, or apologizing, you are trapped within its invisible web. The more you try to prove your worth to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you, the deeper you sink into the trap. That's the brilliance and the cruelty of dark psychological tactics. They make you think that if you just try a little harder, love a little more, sacrifice a little deeper, everything will finally fall into place. But it never does, because the design was never meant to free you. It was meant to keep you spinning, chasing, doubting, exhausting yourself for crumbs of approval. When you understand dark psychology, you stop participating. You recognize that stepping back is not cowardice, it's wisdom. Silence becomes your shield. It is not an empty void. It is a space filled with awareness. Every time you choose not to engage in a senseless argument, every time you choose not to justify your feelings to someone who mocks them, every time you walk away from someone who tries to bait you into defending your dignity, you are dismantling the structure of control they worked so hard to build. It's important to realize that dark psychology doesn't always come from obvious villains. It often comes from people who appear charming, wounded, or even caring on the surface. They wear masks. They mirror your desires. They study your insecurities and offer exactly what you crave, not to give it to you, but to use it as leverage. They offer acceptance, but only conditionally. They offer love, but only when you perform. They offer validation, but only when you stay small. Once you begin to grow, once you begin to set boundaries, once you begin to choose yourself over the illusion they offered, the mask slips. That's when the real battle begins, and that's when silence becomes your greatest weapon. Silence forces a manipulator to deal with their own void. They are used to operating by feeding off your reactions, your fears, your need for approval. When you go silent, you deny them that nourishment. It's like pulling the rug out from underneath them. Without your emotional energy to control, they lose their anchor. They are forced to face their own inadequacy, and most are not prepared for that confrontation. Some will escalate, some will try to provoke you even more aggressively, some will play the victim, hoping to guilt you back into the dynamic. But when you understand the game, you are no longer tempted to re-enter it. Dark psychology depends on your ignorance. It depends on your belief that you have to explain yourself endlessly, that you have to earn basic decency, that you have to accept mistreatment if you love someone enough. But once the curtain is pulled back, once you see that the confusion, guilt, and exhaustion were never your flaws but carefully engineered outcomes, you are free. Your silence is no longer a reaction. It becomes a strategy. A calm, steady, powerful strategy that says, I see you, and I choose not to engage. Understanding dark psychology transforms your silence from a passive experience into an active reclaiming of power. You are no longer the puppet dancing to unseen strings. You are no longer the pawn in someone else's emotional chess game. You are the one who steps out of the illusion entirely. You are the one who rewrites the rules. You are the one who chooses peace over performance, clarity over confusion, freedom over fear. Silence is not an absence of sound. It is a presence so powerful that it forces those who rely on manipulation to face their own emptiness. When you choose silence in the face of someone trying to control, guilt trip, or manipulate you, you don't just withdraw from a conversation. You pull the rug out from under their entire emotional strategy. In that moment, they are no longer able to push your buttons. They no longer have access to your emotions, your reactions, or your need for validation. And this is where their control begins to crumble. The truth is, manipulators are not just after your words or your actions. They are after your emotional energy. They thrive on the tension they create in your mind, the confusion they sow, and the emotional roller coaster they induce. They want you to react because your reaction is the currency that fuels their control. The moment you give them that energy, whether through anger, tears, or desperation, you become entangled in their web. But silence breaks this cycle. It strips them of the ability to provoke a response from you. It's as if you have pressed the pause button on their game, and in that pause they begin to realize something they weren't prepared for. They have no power over you. What makes silence so potent in these situations is that it doesn't leave room for argument, for defense, or for negotiation. It's a response that speaks louder than any argument could, and for a manipulator, this is terrifying. They are used to the predictability of your reactions. They know exactly how far they can push before you start to react. They know how to twist your words, twist your feelings, and turn them into something that makes you question yourself. But when you refuse to give them that satisfaction, they lose their ability to predict, to control, to dominate. And in that unpredictability, they are exposed for who they really are, small, insecure, and unable to exist in the face of someone who has claimed their own emotional sovereignty. When you remain silent, you deny them the reaction they crave, and that silence leaves them with a feeling of loss, a sense that something is slipping away from their grasp. Their power is dependent on the illusion of control they create, and when that illusion is shattered by your refusal to participate, they are left standing in the chaos they created, wondering why it doesn't affect you anymore. It's in that moment that they realize their games no longer work. They start to feel the emptiness that they've been trying to distract you from. They begin to face the harsh truth that they are nothing without your emotional chaos to feed on. What they may not understand at first is that silence is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. You are not silent because you have nothing to say, but because you have decided that your peace is more important than any reaction they seek. You are not silent because you are afraid of confrontation, but because you are no longer interested in a war you know you've already won. You are not silent because you lack a voice, but because you have chosen to use it in ways that align with your values, not theirs. This silence forces them to confront the fact that they are no longer in control of the situation, and more importantly, that they are no longer in control of you. This is when the power dynamic shifts. The moment they realize that their manipulation tactics no longer affect you, they are left vulnerable. They may try to escalate, to provoke you even more, but you will have already crossed into a space where their attempts feel futile. They start to feel desperate, grasping for something they can no longer control, and in that desperation, they reveal their true nature, someone who feeds off the energy of others, someone who cannot stand alone without the constant validation and emotional chaos they create. The more you stand in your silence, the more their illusion shatters. They may try to disguise their discomfort, but you will see it in their eyes, in their behavior. The more you remain calm, collected, and unwavering in your silence, the more their facade crumbles. You are not waiting for them to change. You are waiting for you to change. And in the process, you gain something more valuable than any argument or confrontation ever could: your emotional freedom. You are no longer the puppet. You are the one who has taken back control. Your silence has become the statement they cannot ignore, the truth they cannot deny. Silence in these moments does not just break them, it reveals them. It exposes the fragility of their manipulations. It shows them that their control was never as strong as they believed, that it was only a matter of time before the truth emerged. And in that truth, they will either break down, becoming desperate and defensive, or they will fade away, no longer able to affect you in the same way. Because silence does not need to prove anything. It simply is, and when you master it, you master the game. There's something deeply transformative about silence. It's in the quiet moments, when you choose not to react, not to answer, not to engage, that clarity begins to emerge. In the chaos of everyday life, in the noise of constant distractions, it's easy to lose sight of who you are, what you want, and what you truly need. But silence has a unique ability to cut through that noise, to carve out a space where you can hear your own thoughts clearly again. It's in those moments of stillness that you rediscover your sense of self, your purpose, and your direction. When you choose silence, you allow your mind to stop racing, to stop reacting, to stop overthinking. You step out of the emotional vortex that others try to pull you into, and in doing so, you begin to see things as they truly are, no longer clouded by the noise of external pressures or the need to explain yourself. You start to reconnect with your own inner wisdom. You stop living according to someone else's script. You stop allowing others' opinions, judgments, and manipulations to dictate your choices. Instead, you tap into your own voice, the one that has always been there but has often been drowned out by the demands of others. Silence allows you to hear that voice loud and clear. What silence does is give you the space to reflect. In moments of quiet, you can take a step back and examine your situation without the influence of external forces. You stop reacting on autopilot and start responding with intention. When you're caught in a whirlwind of emotions, it's easy to say things you don't mean, to make decisions that don't align with your true values, and to fall into patterns that only serve to perpetuate confusion and pain. But in silence you reclaim your power to choose. You are no longer reacting. You are responding from a place of clarity, from a place of understanding. Clarity doesn't come from constantly engaging with the noise around you. It doesn't come from arguing, defending, or justifying yourself to others. It comes from the moments when you pull back, when you quiet the outside world long enough to listen to your own inner voice. It comes when you stop allowing the opinions and emotional manipulations of others to define your reality. In silence, you become the observer, not the participant. You begin to see the situation for what it is, without the distortion of fear, guilt, or anger. You begin to understand that many of the issues you face are not as complicated as they seem, and that most of the problems you experience in relationships or in your life are rooted in miscommunication, misunderstanding, and emotional turmoil that can be cleared away by simply stepping back. The power of silence is in its ability to expose the truth. When you refuse to engage with someone who is trying to manipulate or control you, their tactics lose their potency. Silence makes them uncomfortable because they no longer have access to the emotional responses they rely on. They are forced to face their own insecurities, their own needs for validation, and their own lack of control. But more importantly, silence allows you to gain clarity about what's happening in your own heart and mind. It helps you see through the fog of confusion and distraction that others may try to impose on you. This clarity is not just intellectual, it's emotional. When you stop reacting and start observing, you begin to feel the weight of the situation in a way that is free from the chaos of emotional reactivity. You stop taking things personally. You stop allowing the actions and words of others to shake your sense of self. You begin to realize that other people's behaviors are more about them than they are about you. Silence helps you separate your own emotions from the emotional games others play. You begin to see that their need for control, their need to provoke, their need to manipulate is not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of their own issues. And in that realization, you find peace. You stop internalizing their behavior. You stop carrying their burdens. Clarity also comes from being able to make decisions without the cloud of other people's influence. When you are constantly surrounded by noise, by opinions, by demands, it's hard to make decisions that align with your true desires. You may feel pressured to go along with what others want, to make choices that please those around you, to live up to expectations that have nothing to do with your authentic self. But in silence, you are free to hear your own heart. You are free to make decisions based on what you truly want, not what others want from you. As you embrace silence, you also begin to see the value of your own time and energy. You stop wasting both on people who drain you, on situations that don't serve you, and on emotions that don't belong to you. You begin to protect your peace, to guard your thoughts, and to prioritize your own well-being over the chaos of external drama. Silence becomes a way of reclaiming your space, of honoring your own energy, and of creating boundaries that protect your mental, emotional, and physical health. In essence, silence is not about withdrawal or avoidance. It's about gaining perspective. It's about stepping out of the noise long enough to understand what's really happening in your life. It's about seeing the truth with crystal clarity and making choices that align with your inner wisdom. Silence doesn't just create space. It creates understanding, and understanding creates peace. When you begin to embrace silence, you step into a new level of self-awareness, a new level of empowerment, and a new level of clarity that allows you to navigate your life with intention and purpose. The long-term effects of choosing silence over reaction are not immediate. They unfold slowly, building over time into a profound transformation in how you perceive yourself, how you interact with others, and how you navigate the world. The power of silence is not just in the momentary escape it offers from emotional chaos. It is in its ability to reshape your entire emotional landscape. What begins as a deliberate act of restraint evolves into a lifestyle, a mindset, and a way of being that empowers you to live with more clarity, confidence, and strength than you ever thought possible. Over time, silence teaches you the art of emotional detachment. You begin to realize that you are not your emotions, and you don't have to be defined by the reactions of others. Before you embraced silence, your emotional state was often tied to the actions and words of people around you. You would react impulsively, either lashing out or retreating, depending on the situation. But as you practice silence, you begin to realize that your peace does not depend on external circumstances. Your emotions are yours to control. You begin to develop the ability to separate yourself from the turmoil others may try to impose on you. The long-term effect is that you stop living at the mercy of others' behavior. Instead, you cultivate a deep sense of inner peace that is unaffected by their actions. As you continue to embrace silence, you also begin to recognize the importance of energy conservation. Every time you engage in conflict, every time you react to someone's words or actions, you expend energy. Emotional energy, like physical energy, is finite. You begin to understand that when you react emotionally to something or someone, you are giving away pieces of yourself. You are draining your own reserves. But silence allows you to preserve that energy. It's not just about avoiding unnecessary confrontation. It's about protecting your own emotional resources. The more you conserve your energy, the more you have to invest in your own growth, your own success, and your own well-being. Silence, in this way, becomes a form of self-care, a way of protecting your emotional health from being depleted by external forces. Another long-term effect of silence is that it forces you to confront your own thoughts, fears, and insecurities. When you stop engaging with the noise around you, you are left alone with yourself. And while this can initially feel uncomfortable, it's in these moments of solitude that you start to really understand yourself. The silence forces you to deal with the thoughts and emotions that you've been avoiding, the fears you've been running from, and the insecurities that have been lurking beneath the surface. But this confrontation is not a bad thing. It is, in fact, one of the most powerful catalysts for growth. When you stop distracting yourself with the reactions and opinions of others, you are forced to face your own inner world. And as you confront your deepest fears and insecurities, you gain the power to overcome them. Silence, in this sense, becomes a mirror, reflecting back to you all the parts of yourself that you've neglected or avoided. And through that reflection, you begin to heal, to grow, and to become stronger. As you become more accustomed to silence, you also start to experience a greater sense of emotional resilience. Life will always bring challenges, and people will continue to try to push your buttons, to provoke you, to create conflict. But the more you practice silence, the less power those external forces have over you. You develop a level of emotional immunity, a sense of inner strength that enables you to remain calm and composed, no matter what comes your way. Silence gives you the ability to respond to adversity without being swept away by it. You stop reacting emotionally, and instead you begin to act with purpose, with clarity, and with intention. Over time, this emotional resilience becomes second nature. You are no longer at the mercy of your emotions or the people around you. You have learned to navigate the storm without being tossed around by it. In the long run, silence also helps you develop a deeper understanding of others. When you stop speaking, when you stop reacting, you begin to listen more deeply. You listen not just to the words people say, but to the energy behind those words. You begin to see beyond the surface level interactions and start to understand the underlying motivations and emotions that drive others' behavior. You start to see people for who they really are, not just for how they present themselves in the moment. This deeper understanding allows you to interact with others in a more compassionate, empathetic way. You no longer take things personally because you realize that much of what people say or do is a reflection of their own struggles and insecurities. Silence gives you the ability to detach from the drama and see things with greater clarity and compassion. Finally, the long-term effects of silence culminate in a profound shift in your sense of self-worth. When you no longer feel the need to react or to defend yourself, you stop seeking validation from others. You begin to understand that your worth is not determined by how others treat you or how they perceive you. Your value comes from within. You become more self-assured, more confident in your own skin. You stop living to meet the expectations of others, and instead you begin to live according to your own standards and values. This internal shift in self-worth is transformative. You begin to set stronger boundaries, to demand more from yourself, and to attract relationships and experiences that align with your true desires. The long-term effect of silence is that it helps you step into your own power, your own worth, and your own potential. In the long run, silence is not just a tool for managing conflict or avoiding drama. It is a powerful practice that transforms your emotional world, reshapes your interactions with others, and empowers you to live with greater clarity, peace, and strength. Through silence, you rediscover your sense of self, preserve your energy, heal old wounds, and cultivate emotional resilience. And as you continue to embrace this practice, you begin to experience a deeper sense of inner peace and self-assurance, one that cannot be shaken by the external chaos of life. When you embrace silence, you step away from the noise that clutters your mind and distracts you from what truly matters. In that silence, you create an environment where you can hear the voice of your intuition. This voice is the true guide to your life, the one that speaks from a place of deep wisdom, and when you choose to listen to it, you find clarity and direction. People often overlook their inner wisdom because they are too busy seeking external validation, drowning out their own voice in the process. But silence allows you to reconnect with that wisdom, to hear it clearly and without distortion. It is in these quiet moments that you realize the power you already possess, not through external validation, but through the confidence that arises from trusting your own instincts and decisions. Moreover, silence gives you the space to focus on your intentions. Every day, we are bombarded with distractions and demands that pull us in 1,000 different directions. We are asked to be everything to everyone, to constantly give of ourselves without taking the time to evaluate what we truly want or need. But when you embrace silence, you break free from these external pressures. You are able to reconnect with your own desires, your own goals, and your own purpose. This focus is incredibly powerful because it allows you to move through life with clarity and precision, knowing exactly what you are working towards. Silence eliminates the need to explain yourself to others, to seek approval, or to justify your actions. In the absence of external noise, you can hone in on your own desires and work towards them with purpose and confidence. Silence also helps you regain control over your emotions. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to react, to respond to everything happening around us, to express our opinions and feelings at every turn. However, constant reaction to external stimuli can drain your emotional energy and cause you to lose control over your inner world. When you choose silence, you take a step back from the emotional reactions of others. You stop allowing the behavior of others to dictate how you feel. Instead, you cultivate a space where you can process your emotions at your own pace without being swept away by the energy of those around you. This emotional sovereignty is powerful because it puts you in charge of how you feel. You are no longer subject to the whims of others. Instead, you create your emotional state from within. Silence helps you develop the ability to act from a place of emotional balance and stability, rather than reacting out of fear, anger, or insecurity. When you embrace silence as a practice, you also strengthen your boundaries. In a world that constantly demands more of us, it can be difficult to say no, to create space for yourself, and to protect your energy. But silence gives you the ability to do so with confidence and clarity. It is through silence that you learn to recognize when you need to withdraw, to protect your peace, and to honor your own needs. It is in those quiet moments that you understand the importance of setting boundaries, of saying no without guilt, and of prioritizing your own well-being over the demands of others. Silence is a reflection of your inner power, and when you allow yourself the space to be quiet, you are asserting control over your life and your choices. Another powerful aspect of silence is its ability to cultivate patience. We live in a society that is always moving, always pushing forward, always rushing to the next thing. There is a constant pressure to be productive, to do more, to achieve more. But silence invites you to slow down, to be present, and to allow things to unfold at their own pace. In silence you learn the art of patience, of trusting the process of life, and of letting things happen naturally without forcing them. This patience is not passive, it is a form of strength. It requires discipline to sit in silence and trust that everything will fall into place when the time is right. This patience allows you to move through life with a sense of peace, knowing that you are in control of your reactions, but not of every circumstance. You accept that some things take time and that rushing only causes unnecessary stress. Silence also enhances your ability to listen, which is one of the most underrated skills when it comes to building relationships and personal success. In a noisy world where everyone is eager to share their own thoughts and opinions, the power of listening is often overlooked. But silence allows you to truly listen, not just to the words being spoken, but to the underlying emotions, intentions, and desires that others may not even realize they are expressing. This deep listening creates a space for connection that goes beyond surface-level conversations. When you listen attentively, people feel seen, heard, and understood, and this builds trust and respect. You begin to notice details, patterns, and nuances that others might miss. In silence, you gain insight into what people are truly saying, which allows you to respond in a way that is thoughtful, deliberate, and effective. Lastly, silence helps you embrace your own personal growth. When you are constantly engaging with the noise of the world, it is easy to lose sight of your own growth and progress, but silence forces you to reflect on your own journey. It provides you with the space to assess where you are in life, to consider what you've learned, and to identify areas where you want to improve. This reflection is powerful because it helps you develop a deeper sense of self-awareness. You begin to understand your strengths, weaknesses, fears, and desires in a way that empowers you to make decisions that align with your true self. Silence becomes a tool for personal development, a way to move forward in life with purpose and intention, rather than simply reacting to whatever comes your way. In all of these ways, silence becomes an essential source of personal power. It enables you to reconnect with your inner wisdom, set clear intentions, regulate your emotions, strengthen your boundaries, develop patience, listen deeply, and grow as an individual. Through silence, you tap into a wellspring of strength that allows you to live with greater clarity, focus, and purpose.